Welcome everybody back to episode number 13 of the Plumecast, my weekly gaming news podcast where I talk about a lot of the stuff going on within the video game industry, mainly focusing on the Xbox Series XS and the PlayStation 5. If you guys are new here, thank you for stopping by. As usual, if you haven't checked out my channel, make sure to go check it out. I do upload daily gaming news videos for you guys to watch throughout the week, and then I do Plumecast at the end of the week as my longer form content, just kind of casually laid back, chatting about some stuff that I didn't get to or stuff that I wanted to double down on. Now, on every single show, I drink a beer. So if you've been listening for a while, you'll know that. If you're new, drink a beer every show, and I always ask you guys what you're drinking for suggestions down below in case I can find those beers at my local beer stores or liquor store. And this week I am drinking Spitfire Amber Ale, and I believe this is a product of England. Yeah, so it's from England, and I like amber ales, and it's a delicious beer. And I mean, I'm sure everyone in the UK right now is celebrating because I believe they are off to the semi-finals of the Euro. I'm Canadian, but my heritage is Italian, so we may see an Italy-England final in this year's Euro 2020, even though we're in 2021. So I'll be cheering against England, but your beer is good, so you have that at least. And also, I know if you guys have been watching, I'm a big Habs fan. They're down 3-0 in the Stanley Cup Finals. It's been a very disappointing final. I mean, Tampa Bay is a very, very strong team, but I'm not giving up, so I'm still wearing my jersey because Game 4 is tomorrow, and you know they just got to win one. You never know. I mean, anything can happen. I know the chances are extremely low that they are going to come back and win, but I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up after they've had such a great playoffs. Now, in terms of what I have been playing this week, it's been Mad Max I've been jumping into with the FPS boost on the Xbox Series S and X, and it's a game I never got around to playing when it first came out, I believe back in 2015. It's a game from the Avalanche Studios group, which we know is working on a Contraband is the exclusive for Xbox that they showed off or they announced at E3 this year. And I find that they make some great games, and we've seen it with Rage 2. I thought the game was really fun with the gameplay and the vehicle play. We're seeing it here with Mad Max, which is a game I'm sure a lot of people have checked out. It's a lot of fun. It's an open world. The driving around, the upgrading your car and your arsenal and everything is really good. The combat is excellent in Mad Max. If you like the Batman Arkham series, the combat is similar to that, but it is really, really well done. Every time you get into a fight, it's enjoyable to play, and that's one of combat I find is always kind of like it's such an important part of a lot of games, and there's so many times that it's not done well, but it's done extremely well in Mad Max. It's only, I think it's about a 20-hour game to play the campaign, and I'm just kind of going around the world right now. I don't know. I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to finish the entire game because it is a big map and everything, and I do want to jump into a bunch of different stuff, but from what I've been playing, it is a ton of fun. I'll probably just periodically go back to it, finish off some missions, and then eventually get to the end. And then besides that, I've started Doom Eternal. Now, I know you may think I'm crazy because I haven't played Doom Eternal yet. I absolutely loved Doom 2016, probably one of my favorite games when that came out, and it's just such a good game. The gameplay mechanics, the level design, the enemies, everything with Doom is just so fun. And Doom Eternal, I'm about 2 hours into it, and I have to say I may be enjoying it even more than Doom 2016. It's so good. Like that's almost like a perfect game. It's like almost a 10 out of 10 for me. Like that's how much fun I'm having. Now, obviously I haven't finished it. I think it's like a 15 or 20 hour game, but I have a feeling that once I get to the end, unless it's completely underwhelming, it's going to be one of my favorite games that I've played. So it's so crazy what id Software has done with Doom, with 2016 and Doom Eternal, and just I can't even imagine how good the next entry into the franchise is going to be, especially if it's going to be made from the ground up for the next generation consoles. I'm just, the more I play through it, the more excited I get for that. But that's pretty much all I've been playing this week. So let me know in the comments below what you guys have been playing. Now, this week on the show, again, it's been like not a crazy week in terms of news. Sorry, I got the Had the beer burps there, but it hasn't been too crazy. But there are some stuff I want to talk about. So we're going to be going over this big story about the PlayStation Store and charging devs for visibility and stuff like that. It's been one of the more controversial things going around this week. We're going to talk about smart delivery again, how just great it is and how it's failing PlayStation users. Then we're going to go over the Xbox Series X, and there's chip shortages still, and it's very hard to get, and Phil Spencer kind of confirmed that, and some other stuff that Phil Spencer has talked about. And we're also going to talk about the high-end machine learning that Xbox is really pushing and working on with the Xbox Series X, and it looks like they are pushing even harder now because they're hiring more people to be looking into that. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so the big story this week that was a negative story had to do with, there was a developer that kind of went on a rant on Twitter talking about his frustration with the PlayStation Store, and as an indie developer, just how difficult it is to get any visibility on the store, and that you have to pay sometimes up to like $25,000 or even up to like $200,000 in order to get visibility if you're a small indie developer. Now, the name of this person was Ian Gardner of Neon Doctrine, and he went on Twitter and just went on a big tirade, and he didn't specifically mention he was talking about PlayStation in his tirade. He said that it was Platform X that isn't Microsoft. Basically says Platform X and it isn't made by Microsoft. And then there were verified sources in this article that they say that he was talking about Sony. But to be completely kind of try to be unbiased about this whole thing, this is also, he is talking about PlayStation, but from what I understand, we don't know the specifics of what Xbox does with their store, but I'm pretty sure they're saying here that they do similar things, but we don't know any specifics because nobody's actually come out and made a rant about it. But this rant is specifically having to do with PlayStation. Now, here is like his main thing that he says. He says, if Platform X doesn't like your game, no fanfare, no feature, no love. He says that after stating that getting any attention at all requires, he jumps through hoops, suggesting that developers have no ability to manage their games. He goes on to detail how a game's presence is based on the platform holder's own evaluation of the product. How is this and then he asks, how is this evaluation done? Don't know. They don't share that, nor will they share the value they ascribe to my game. So that was his part of his rant. And I can understand the frustration. I mean, you're being told that there is a rating system, I guess, that PlayStation goes through in order to see if your game is going to get any love, any features, or any visibility on the PlayStation Store. And as the indie developer, you don't know exactly how they are evaluating your game. So a lot of it is just unclear. And then you're just guessing, well, why can't my game be shown? I think it's great. People who've played it think it's great. But PlayStation doesn't think it's great, so they're not showing it up there. He then goes on to say that all games released on the store have to go through an incredibly difficult compliance check spread over 3 generations of back-end software. Then they have to create a specific trailer for the platform, write a blog for their site, and then submit multiple forms for social media. And even getting assigned an account manager, he's saying, has been proven to be very difficult with PlayStation. Now, I guess like I can understand the frustration there of like there's so much work to do as an indie developer if you want to submit your game to PSN. And at the other end, I can understand why PlayStation will want you to submit like a trailer for your game so that if people want to see what the game is about, they can just quickly watch the trailer or read a blog about it and then have access to social media if they want to get more information. But the not having account managers seems would be super annoying, especially if you're trying to converse with PlayStation to make sure that you're following all of their rules and all the compliance and all that stuff, and not having a direct contact could be very, very annoying. Now he goes on here talking about something that doesn't make any sense to me, and well, it makes sense from a corporate like PlayStation, I get why they do it, because, you know, they control everything. If you buy a digital PS5, you're screwed. You are under the complete control of Sony for how much you're going to be playing for games. They have complete control of the PlayStation Network. And I believe this was something that was brought up in the Epic versus Apple case, how it was kind of like anti-consumer, that they have all control of the pricing. Even when you see pricing of certain games that are on the PSN cheaper in other areas, cheaper physically. I saw a post on Twitter which just made me so happy that I don't have a digital PlayStation 5. And it was not that I'm going to pick up the game and play it anytime soon, but it was that Returnal was in US dollars $49.99 physical, and it was still full price on PSN at that point in time when they showed it. So there's things like that, that if you have a digital PlayStation 5, you're kind of screwed. Like, you are under the mercy of whatever PlayStation wants to do with you, with the pricing of their games. When they want to reduce the pricing of their games, you will always see physical games go on sale faster than you will see the digital games. And Ian Gardner here talks about that if he wanted to sell his game at a discounted price, even if it was at a discounted price on other places like on Steam or whatever, it would have to go through the console owner's approval. So basically it would have to go through PlayStation Network and Sony and all that kind of stuff for them to approve the price cut in an indie game, which makes no sense. If you're the developer of an indie game, you put it on PSN, I feel like you should be able to determine what the price is for it, because you're still paying 30% or whatever it is of whatever that game sells for on PSN to Sony. So I guess Sony's argument would be, well, if you cut it so low, they're not making any money on it, and then they have to hold that game on their servers and pay money for those servers, and it's not even worth putting your game on PSN because they're not going to be making enough money on it. From the greedy corporate side of things, that would probably be why they would do this, right? They don't want just everybody being able to launch their games onto PSN, hold all that data in their servers, and all of the work that goes in. I don't know how much work goes into it, but I guess there is some work that goes into updating the store, making sure it all looks good and runs properly so people can download it and there's no issues, and then make no money off of somebody buying that game off of PSN. Now, he says all of those things, and seems like it's a lot of work if you're a small indie developer to put your game on PSN, and the chances of people seeing your game are very low if it's not a game that has great marketing and a lot of fanfare and everybody knows about it. But he says to bypass all of those things, to make sure that your game gets featured and all this kind of stuff, you would have to pay a minimum of $25,000 to Sony, which, if you're an indie developer, there's no way you have $25,000 that you can just give to, so like, especially if you're a smaller one, that you can just give to Sony if you want any chance of this game that you've created to be profitable. Now, like I said, they do say here that some of these things, or we don't know the specifics of it, but they do say here that they've been told that Microsoft also runs similar payment schemes for the Xbox Store. I'm guessing to get games featured on the Xbox Store, because Xbox still is going to choose which games they want to show. I mean, we're always seeing when you log on to Xbox, you go into the Xbox Store, different games are featured, a lot of them from bigger developers that you can tell are paying money to get up there. But if you're an indie developer, like, there's no way that you would be able to afford any of this. And then this is an article from Kotaku, and generally I think Kotaku doesn't do great stuff, because especially with that Halo Infinite. But anyways, I don't want to get into that anyways. It's ridiculous. But they did ask him, I believe that's it. Yeah, so they reached out to Sony for comment and will update should they respond. Obviously, Sony hasn't responded. Then they asked Ian Gardner why he felt the need to speak out after he calling out Platform X. And it's great that they asked him that, because he says here that Platform X, so PlayStation or Sony, is letting down indies on a massive scale while using them as a key part of their marketing. The recent call I had showed that they had no regard for us, our opinions, or our livelihoods. What's worse is that it ensures that their customers get a worse deal and have less options. I don't understand the logic, but it seems to be bad for everyone, including them. So he's speaking out because we've seen, like, the state of plays. we've seen ID at Xbox, if we want to bring Xbox into this, and we've seen the Nindies or whatever it is with Nintendo, and they do use a lot of these indie games for creating these presentations and for marketing for their console to get people to want to jump onto their console and play these games. I'm sure that the indies that get featured on these shows are not disappointed about that, because that's a great way for exposure. But what he's saying here is that because the indies provide great marketing for these platforms, the platform should treat the indies better and not have to make them go through all of these loophole or holes or whatever you want to say, and or pay like $25,000 or up to $200,000, like they mentioned in this article, to get featured. And I understand the frustration as an indie developer. Like, I'm not an indie developer, but if I was, I'd understand that frustration. And I think the thing I take away out of this as well is that this is like anything, though. This is just like, there's so much competition out there when it comes to video games now. There are so many people making video games. There are so many indie developers making video games that if you as an indie developer want to get any exposure, want to stand out, your game needs to be outstanding, and there needs to be just like a lot of word of mouth and people pushing it. Like, I can think of Inner Sloth with Among Us. Like, that game came out of nowhere from what I understand. Maybe it was more popular before it got really, really popular, but it literally just came out of nowhere because like Twitch streamers were picking it up and people saw that it was a really fun social game, and there was a lot of like manipulation and mind tricks that goes into that. And a lot of people love playing games like that with a bunch of friends. And then it's such a huge game now. So that is like, there's definitely lots of success stories with that. As an indie developer, I would see all this stuff with PSN, and I would see if all this stuff is similar on the Microsoft store, and I would just kind of stray away from trying to market through these stores. I mean, it seems like it's a waste of time. It seems like they want so much out of you for such little reward. But if you can use like different marketing tools and different marketing methods to try to get your game out there and get it more seen, that's probably the better route for spending your marketing money. And like giving it to Twitch streamers to stream, or using different like advertising platforms. I don't know. I'm just like kind of just like spitballing here, but I'm thinking that this sounds terrible for an indie developer. It sounds like there's no way that if you're a small indie developer, unless there's a ton of fanfare around it, it gets picked up into the mainstream, that you're ever going to be able to have your game seen on those stores. And I guess then there's also Steam. I wonder how the Steam side of things works, because a lot of these indie games release their games on PC through Steam. It's probably the best place and the most popular place to release games if you want any chance of people picking it up. But you can also just apply what's happening here with lack of exposure and lack of eyes on things to other things, like even like YouTube. Like, you could pay tons of money on YouTube if you want to get your videos out there for people to get into the algorithm through paid ads, right? You could pay $25,000. I mean, it's probably a stretch, but if you're super rich, you want to put $25,000 on your video ads for people to see your channel, to see your ads on like the sidebar and stuff. You'll probably get a lot more people finding your channel and get a lot more exposure. But it's super hard for people on YouTube, if they want to start making a YouTube channel right now, to just organically grow. Like for me, I started making YouTube videos back in 2017, and my channel has evolved since then, but I didn't start getting any sort of exposure on my channel until the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 were announced and starting to come out. It was one video that got me a lot of views, and then from there my channel has been growing organically. I'm guessing because people enjoy my content. I mean, if my content was just completely crap, even after one video, because you see people who have one video that has like 100,000 views and they got a bunch of subscribers, and then there's nothing else after that. Mine has been growing organically, and I really appreciate everyone's support on that. But it took me like 3.5 years of just constantly making videos almost every single day with small breaks, but just nonstop, in order for my channel to finally, I guess, get into the algorithm and to get seen. And it seems like this is kind of the same thing with the indie games. Now, obviously, indie developers aren't going to be making indie games every single day. I mean, it takes them a long time to make these games, but it's just like, it's unfortunate for them. I don't see it changing at any point. I just feel like if you're an indie developer, you probably have to think of other ways to try to get exposure, because I don't think spending $25,000 for exposure on PSN, or even if the same thing with the Xbox store, is the way to go. Because unless you get lucky like Inner Sloth with Among Us and it gets picked up by streamers and people start playing it, it's going to be hard to get that exposure. And it's unfortunate because there are so many great indie games, like some of the best, most unique graphics, music, stories, and just great gameplay come out of indie developers. And I don't think that indie developers get nearly enough like attention and praise that they deserve. But it is what it is. We'll have to see if there is ever an update on this, if PlayStation does ever respond, and maybe they reduce the amount of hoops you have to jump through in order to get featured on PSN. I think that would be great if there's enough like attention that gets towards this that they have to. And if this is the same thing that occurs with Xbox, hopefully they make it easier. But I do agree with him for what he says here at the end. Like Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo, they really do lean a lot on indie developers to market their console. Like ID at Xbox, when they have the PlayStation shows, whatever it's called, State of Play, and then the indies. Like, yes, I mean, the indie developers are also getting all that exposure, so it's helping them, and it's helping them get out there, and people are going to go buy their games after they see it. But they all really focus hard on indie developers to create shows and to market their consoles, because it must work. They wouldn't keep doing it if they wouldn't just keep randomly showing indie games. I know they say that they're there to help the indies and they support the indies and all that kind of stuff, and I do believe that to some extent. But I don't believe that they would continuously show indies to market their console if the indies didn't get people going on to the consoles to play them. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Hopefully Sony will respond, and maybe there will be a follow-up. Okay, so moving on here to probably one of the most exciting features available on the Xbox Series consoles. Now, I'm not too technical, so I don't know exactly how all of this stuff works, but what I'm talking about is the high-end machine learning that is available on the Xbox Series X and S. It looks like Microsoft is really going harder on this, as there are a bunch of openings that they've put out, job openings for engineers to work on machine learning. So this is what the recruitment page says. It says engineering roles are available to direct the future of machine learning and computer graphics technologies on Xbox consoles. These roles would focus on researching and implementing machine learning algorithms into software to make traditional rendering techniques more efficient and provide new alternative solutions. So that's exciting, because it's quite clear that the Xbox Series X and S are so early in their, I guess you could say, like, development in terms of what we're going to be able to see from games that come out of them in the future. And I think especially the Xbox Series S, stuff like this is going to be just such a game changer to make this console just last longer than a lot of people think that it's going to last. Because if you can put a bunch of techniques like DirectML to make games have high resolutions or just run better on weaker hardware, that's going to be super helpful going forward throughout this generation. But besides that, I mean, I can't wait to see once a lot of these techniques are being used, because with the Xbox Series X and X, they use the DirectX 12 suite of software APIs, which includes direct storage, sampler feedback streaming, and DirectML. Once all of the stuff is just like being used and developers have a full grasp on the GDK, as we know they got the GDK sent at them late, especially when you're comparing it to the PlayStation 5 GDK, I think the games are going to look so outstanding on the Xbox consoles, and that's exciting. And that Microsoft is investing more money, more research, trying to find the best people to figure this stuff out is something I think that we can all look forward to. Now, what exactly is DirectML? From what I understand, it really is just kind of like using machine learning to make games run smoother, getting better resolutions, more locked frame rates. I mean, we've seen games come out initially at the beginning of this generation where we want that 4K 60, but there are times when the frame rates are dropping to like the 50s. And I think stuff like DirectML is really going to get rid of a lot of that stuff that we were seeing. And overall, they say here that DirectML on the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S support machine learning for games with DirectML, a component of DirectX, and it leverages unprecedented hardware performance in a console, with Xbox Series X benefiting from over 24 teraflops of 16-bit float performance and over 97 trillion operations per second of 4-bit integer performance on the Xbox Series X, and that machine learning can improve a wide range of areas, such as making NPCs much smarter, providing vastly more lifelike animations, and greatly improving visual quality. So, I mean, those three things are so important in any game. The thing that has me the most excited out of all three of those things is making NPCs much smarter. Imagine playing games where NPCs are just going to be doing stuff that you would never think that they were doing. They act a lot more lifelike, a lot less predictable. I think that is just going to make games that much more engaging. One of the games that I loved with the way that the enemies reacted that recently came out was Outriders. I found that the enemies in Outriders were just outstanding. Like what they did with how they would attack you, how they would, you'd have to, it wouldn't be predictable what they were going to do. And I found that that was an awesome thing with Outriders. And maybe we'll start to see more games with smarter NPCs, even smarter than that, because I thought that was, they did a great job with making them lifelike and smart, and you really had to think on your feet of how you were going to go through levels and stuff like that. But all in all, I mean, I'm not the most technical person. Like I said, I don't have that much to add to this discussion other than it sounds awesome. I hope it starts getting utilized soon and that developers can really like pull out the full power of the Xbox Series X. And I think we're going to start seeing the full power once the big first party games are coming out in a couple of years, like in 2022, 2023. All the Ninja Theory stuff I think is going to be absolutely amazing. And even all these Bethesda games, imagine like smarter NPCs in the next Elder Scroll games because of some of the technology that's available within the Xbox Series X and S. Now jumping over here to talk about another feature that greatly benefits Xbox, and that is smart delivery. So with Doom Eternal right now, so there's been updates to Doom Eternal. I've been playing it and it runs like just so smoothly. You can get 120 frames per second. And even on the Xbox Series S, I jump between my Xbox Series S and my Xbox Series X with Doom Eternal, and the saves transfer. There's nothing to worry about. It's just so seamless and smooth. But it's not the same with the PlayStation 5, as there's this article that Push Square is talking about, which is a pro PlayStation, I guess pro, but it's like they cover PlayStation news and they're calling this out, which is a great thing to see because these are things that people need to talk about if we want improvements. But it says here that there's no save transfer at all in Doom Eternal on PS5. So while the unnecessary fur surrounding the PlayStation 4 to PS5 save transfers appears to be improving, I don't know if it's truly unnecessary because it's been absolutely ridiculous with some of the stuff like what we saw with the Avengers. But they say here, recent upgrades like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Wreckfest now allow you to import your last gen save file with a minimum fuss. But Doom Eternal hasn't bothered incorporating the features at all. It means that if you're planning to play the next gen version, which released this week, which what I've been playing, which is awesome, then you're going to have to start over. So that's terrible. Now, obviously, one of the things people are probably thinking is that Xbox owns Bethesda and they did this on purpose to kind of screw over PlayStation users. And I mean, I don't believe that at all. I don't think, especially with the way that Microsoft conducts themselves, the way they've been so open to continue to support legacy titles on other platforms, that they would do something like this. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not good business, and I don't see that as the reason why this is occurring. The reason why I think this is occurring is because of just the poor implementation that PlayStation has done with the PS5 with backwards compatibility and save transfers, because this isn't the first time that we've seen this. And before the launch of the PS5 and before the launch of the Xbox Series X and S, and just in general, before the launch of any consoles, there's always like key buzzwords that companies use to try to sell their console, try to promote it. And one of those key buzzwords was smart delivery. Like that was one of the big ones that people would always joke about and make fun of and think that it wasn't anything big, right? And my God, smart delivery is turning out to be like a generational feature in these consoles that you can not have, right? Like you need this feature, especially with the support for backwards compatibility, and especially in these first like 2 years of this console where this is going to be happening a lot. Because imagine you wanted to just like play through Doom Eternal again with the next generation upgrades and have all your stats and everything in there. Or maybe you didn't finish the game, you were halfway through and you're like, yes, I could finally finish it with way better settings with the next generation version of it. You log in and you realize you have to start from scratch because the save file doesn't work. And this is just not something as an Xbox owner you have to ever worry about. And I think that's something we should be praising, and then something that if you're on PlayStation, you should be like telling PlayStation these things, and hopefully that there's some sort of fix that they're going to be able to implement. I honestly think that when it comes to the PS5, Sony just they just like dropped the ball on a lot of quality of life features of this console. Backwards compatibility is significantly worse than it is on Xbox. Like it's just, that's just a fact. It just is significantly worse, especially with the smart delivery stuff. You still can't even update your SSD. You can't put it in an external SSD yet. They said that it was coming this summer. Well, we're July. Unless I'm mistaken here, let me know if I am. If they gave like, maybe they said August or maybe they said the end of July. I'm not sure. But I mean, it's July right now. We still haven't had any word on updating on the ability to expand your SSD. I don't even think there's like an internet browser on the PS5. The console itself is just a behemoth. It's massive. It's not a good looking console. So there's so many little things, and I'm sure I'm missing stuff. And I have a PS5. This isn't coming from somebody who just wants to hate on the PS5. This is something that, like, from my experience, the actual experience on the Xbox is just far superior than it is on the PlayStation 5. Like, even like quick resume is just something that's like game changing when it comes to these consoles. And I would never go back. I would never ever go back without quick resume now. You can look at the quick resume queue now on Xbox, and you can have like multiple games in the queue, and you can just like jump between them. That's not available on the PS5. So there's just so much stuff. They dropped the ball on a lot of these things. And as a PlayStation gamer, instead of just like pushing it under the rug like it isn't anything big, I think that like it's good that they're calling it out here and that people are talking about it, because maybe these are things that can be implemented at some point. Maybe if PlayStation decides that they want to put in the time and the resources to improve the quality of life of the PS5, they will add these features if enough people are annoyed about it, or if they see people just picking up an Xbox and getting backwards compatible games and cross-generational games that are multi-platform on Xbox instead of on PlayStation because of these quality of life features. But that's what I think about it. Let me know what you guys think about this. If you're playing Doom Eternal on PS5, let me know if you've experienced this or not. All right, to finish up this week's episode, I want to just talk about a couple more things when it comes to stuff that Phil Spencer has said. He was on IGN's podcast Unlocked last week, and he said a lot of stuff that we already knew, but which is kind of reassuring stuff, and stuff that if you are interested in Xbox, you'll probably be interested in. I made a bunch of videos about it this week, but there's some more kind of bad news for somebody if you're looking to pick up an Xbox Series X soon, at least. Because as we know, there's a chip shortage. As we know, it is still extremely hard to get an Xbox Series XS or a PlayStation 5. I personally thought when these consoles first released that by this time, you can go back to my videos when these started coming out and I was telling people not to buy from scalpers, and I still do not think you should buy from scalpers. I think that's a waste of money. But I was like, just wait until like June, July, they'll be in the stores. And I couldn't have been more wrong on that, because it's still like they're still sold out everywhere and they're still really hard to get. And it looks like Phil Spencer has said here that the Xbox shortage will be with us for a while. For like I said, multiple reasons: chip shortage, COVID-19. They're having trouble getting just the production and all this stuff and meeting the demand. The consoles are very popular. The PS5 and the Series X are very popular, like more popular than they were last generation. So with all of this stuff going around, it's obviously still going to be very hard to get one of these consoles. But luckily, like this article mentions, and I think this is a great point to talk about, is that with Xbox, yeah, you can't get an Xbox Series X or S right now. But if you want to experience Xbox Game Pass, the things that they have to offer, you want to experience Halo Infinite when it comes out, you want to experience any of these first party games in the future, if you just haven't been able to get an Xbox by then, you can still do this through signing up to Xbox Game Pass. You can play on your PC, you can download games, or just through xCloud if you want to just play what's available on there on your phone and stream it. So that option is available, and that is the main reason why I've said before that yes, the chip shortage sucks. Yes, not being able to sell as many consoles because of this and push more consoles out there for Xbox as a gateway to get into Game Pass is probably not the best thing in the world. But the chip shortage and console sales do not nearly affect Xbox in the same way that it would affect somebody like Nintendo or PlayStation, because of their ecosystem and because Xbox Game Pass is available on multiple devices. And another reason why I think that comparing console sales this generation is just a wasted practice. What you need to compare is, like, if you really care about this, which I don't really care, like too much, like I don't really care about this. I'll report it because I know people are interested in it. And I should say don't care. I care a little bit, but not very much at all. Like, it's not something that I spend a lot of time talking about, but it's that the fact that you shouldn't be looking at individual consoles. You should be looking at users and like how many people are playing games on Game Pass and engagement, like Microsoft said, because there's so many gateways that are available to Xbox Game Pass. People can be playing on multiple devices. When it comes to PlayStation, in order to play PlayStation games, first party games, you have to buy a PS5. So console sales for PlayStation and their overall engagement and how much money they are going to make is directly related to a sale of a PS5 console, which is not the case for Xbox. But if you're looking for a console, it's still going to be tough for a while. What I would recommend is just follow people wherever you live. I'm sure there's accounts, like we have them here in Canada. There's some great people out there who they make some money off of it as well, but who cares, because you're just paying the same price. You're not paying anything extra. Their job really is to just let you know when stuff's available on Twitter. And they post their links, and if you are live on Twitter when that link comes, if you can get in there within like the first minute, you're going to be able to get one of the consoles because they go that fast. But it's hard because you literally got to get on it all the time. Or what I would suggest is just like follow those people, set your Twitter notifications for those people where you get an actual pop-up notification on your phone, and you get like the preview of the tweet, and it'll say like PS5 bundle or Xbox Series X bundle, and you'll know that's when you got to get in if you're really struggling to get one right now. It can be done. It can be done. I know people who have been able to pick up these consoles, and it hasn't been as like crazy as people are making it out to be. It is crazy. Maybe it's a little bit easier in the States. It's still very hard, don't get me wrong, but if you do that, you will most likely get one. So that's that. And moving on here to something else that Phil Spencer talked about, and it was that Xbox is still eager to fill family-friendly gaps in its games portfolio, and they want to improve geographic diversity. So they say here, they were talking about family-friendly content, and Phil Spencer says, absolutely, when I look at the portfolio, I still think there's an opportunity for us with, I'd say, more family-friendly content. And when I think about geographic diversity for our first party studios, I think there's still work for us to do there. Now, when he talks about family friendly content, I'm guessing he's talking about like E-rated games or whatever, but it's not. I think he has a point here in the sense that I think Xbox is missing that like 3D platformer mascot where they can just like build great 3D platformer games that are great for kids, great for families, but also great for like hardcore gamers. So like Banjo and Kazooie, for example. I know a lot of people want that game to come back. I would love to see it come back. And I think that this could be a big point of opportunity for Xbox. I would love to see, because we just saw Ratchet and Clank for the PS5. Now there's a bunch of crazy guns in that game. It's more of like a 3D adventure shooter, I would say, more so than a platformer. So I finished it and it was a great game. But like characters like Ratchet and Clank are just great mascots for PlayStation, and they're fun games. And I think Xbox is missing something like that. And I would love to see that style of a game come over to the Xbox ecosystem. And I think there's lots of opportunities there. They have the studios to be able to do this. And I've always wondered why they haven't dove into this more, because I think Banjo-Kazooie would be perfect. And everybody really wants that, but will we see it? I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll bring back like Blink's Time Sweeper or whatever the name of that game was back on the original Xbox. So there's an opportunity for this, and it's good to see that Phil Spencer is understands that, and maybe we will see that like 3D platformer, like Mario 64 style of game. That's kind of what I want to see. I want to see like a Mario 64 style 3D platform. And when I say Mario 64, I mean like just with like great level design, great platforming, all that kind of stuff, right? I would love to see that in an Xbox game eventually. And then when he touches on geographic diversity of first party studios, he says he still thinks there's work for us to do there. I mean, it would be great to build Xbox as a stronger brand. I mean, more Japanese studios, more studios in other parts of the country. I've seen in my comments below, like, even if there aren't first party studios in all of these countries, I think just more geographic diversity for Xbox is the time to capitalize with Game Pass. I've seen people in my comments from India, from Africa, who are saying like, we want Game Pass, we want to get onto it, and it's just not available here. So I think there is a huge opportunity for Xbox to grow its brand globally. And I'm sure they know this. I don't think they need to hear me saying this, or anybody else on YouTube knows. I'm sure they're in the works of doing that. But I think that with Xbox Game Pass, with the ability to play on any device, with even the Xbox Series S mainly, that there is so much growth that Xbox can do in other countries. And it'll be exciting to see if they capitalize on it, and how they continue to push the Xbox brand in more globally geographic countries. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Let me know, as always, what you think about any of these topics in the comments below. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the support. Stay tuned. I'll be making videos again all week as I do. And I'm going to be creating some merch soon. I'm almost at 5,000 subscribers, and I'm hoping that soon after that, I'll be showing off some stuff. I have some pretty cool designs coming. I think you guys will like it, and I'll be showing them off, and I'd love to see your guys' thoughts. But besides that, again, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for all of your support. I'll catch you in the videos this week or next week on the Plumecast.